Hello and welcome to Calling the Shots, the show that puts public address announcers and broadcasters in the spotlight. It's me, the booming baritone, messiah of the microphone, Joel. You can just call me Joel. That's fine. That works for me. That's what my friends and colleagues and family call me that. Some call me Dad. Anyway, today's show going to be a special one, especially if you're a little bit north of the border. Today, we've got someone whose voice is recognized from television to even video games, Need for Speed, Judy Justice. But if you're a hockey fan, think Canucks. That's right. Al Murdoch is in the house, and we talk about some of Al's practices, his experiences, some things that make him tick, things that he's learned over the years. It was a wonderful conversation to have with Al. It was such a pleasure to meet him. He's great for hockey. He's also the original voice of the Memphis Grizzlies before they moved to Memphis when they were Vancouver Grizzlies. So he shares some of those experiences and stories as well. So I'll shut up. You guys go ahead and like, share, subscribe, check out my other videos, but don't do that yet. Do that after you watch this one. It's a good time. Here we go. Welcome to Calling the Shots, the show that puts public address announcers and broadcasters in the spotlight. Today's guest can be heard on television, in video games, and most notably as the booming voice that echoes from the top of Rogers Arena in beautiful Vancouver, Canada, the one and only Al Murdoch. Al, thank you for coming to hang out with us this evening. Greatly appreciate
it. My pleasure, man. Congratulations on the new podcast, and I hope it's onwards and upwards for you.
Absolutely, that's the goal. That's the goal. As long as I have people like you coming on, there's no reason not to. So getting started here, way back in the day, we'll say you graduated BCIT.
I did.
You did, and then you
went
to
So that's the British Columbia Institute of Technology. Right out of high school, radio was in my blood. I wanted to be on the radio ever since I was about 6 years old. Mm-hmm. And so right out of high school, I went down to one of our local radio stations here in Vancouver and bugged them for probably every second day for about 4 weeks until they gave me a job. And all the while, kind of learning on the job, went to BCIT as well. Somebody at the radio station said, you know what? you might want to go there. You might want to get a little bit more schooling in some other areas that you might not learn here. So while I was working as a board op at CKNW here in Vancouver, went to BCIT only for 1 year. It's a 2-year program. Only went for 1 year because I ended up getting a job and getting co-opted out and didn't have to go to the second year. But it was well worth it. It was great. And of course, I met a ton of people that ended up being in the business and lifelong friends.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, it's good to have that good foundation. And I've read a lot of good things about BCIT, just looking at your backstory, and learned a lot about it. I see it's a very diverse school, a lot of different fields that people were going into. It was really impressive to read all of that.
Absolutely. And they've got a radio program, they've got a journalism program, they've got a television program, and then a nursing program, engineering, marketing. I mean, it runs the gamut. And years ago, you couldn't come out with a degree. You came out with a diploma. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's just a piece of paper. But at the end of the day, I think for the most part, it's a pretty good post-secondary institution.
Yeah, for sure. So shout out to BCIT. You were the original PA broadcasting announcer for the Vancouver Grizzlies when they were in Vancouver before they made the move down to Memphis. And was it during that time that you backed up John Ashbridge, or was that when you started moving over into hockey?
Yeah, so back when Vancouver was awarded the franchise, Little side story. I'm doing afternoon drive radio at a local station here in Vancouver. And I see on the news on television that we kind of had in the background that they were holding auditions for the PA announcer for the Grizzlies. And I found out at 5 o'clock that afternoon that the auditions were at noon that day. So I completely missed the auditions.
Oh,
So I was like, what the, how did I not know about this? So I, of course, and it's all about persistence. And I phoned up then Orca Bay Sports and Entertainment, which owned the team, and said, listen, who do I talk to? I missed the auditions. I was supposed to be there. I was meant for this job, blah, blah, blah.
mm,
Talked to the receptionist, and she was nice enough to put me through to the then uh, head of game entertainment. I talked to him. His name's Greg von Schottenstein. Love you, Greg, because he gave me my first shot. He said, listen, you missed the auditions. I'm sorry. And I said, listen, I'm on the air right now, but I can be down there in an hour. Can I come see you? So he said, yeah. So I went down, saw him. He put me behind the mic at then GM Place before it became
mm.
Rogers Arena. Did a few announcements. He brought me downstairs into the Grizzlies dressing room and put on a VHS tape of a game. That tells you how long ago it was.
Yeah.
Of Houston and Phoenix. He turned down the sound on the television. He said, pick a team and do the PA. So thank goodness I was a huge basketball fan, and Houston was one of my favorite teams. Clyde Drexler, Keem
Yeah.
Olajuwon, all of those great players. And so I just picked that team. They were the home team. Phoenix was the away team. I did the PA for about 10 minutes. And he said, congratulations. You're the new PA announcer for the Vancouver Grizzlies.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, leaving that meeting and getting into the elevator, the elevator door closes and I'm just, yelling at the top of my lungs that thank goodness,
Yeah.
persistence pays off and people were nice enough to see me. But John was Ashbridge, who was a mentor of mine for a long time. We worked in radio for a long time, knew him for over 30 years. He was doing the Canucks. So he was doing the Canucks. I was doing the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies left town after 6 years. He carried on doing that. And then it was in 2011 that I ended up being asked to come back and fill in for John during the playoffs as the Canucks made their way to the Stanley Cup final in 2011. He had a health scare. I had to fill in for a couple of games during the Western final, and that kind of, opened the door for me for another opportunity to do PA.
Yeah. And I mean, what a series to step into as well. In 2011, the timing of that was ridiculous. That was one of the most notable times in Vancouver hockey history. It was that was the Bruins series, I believe, in the Stanley Cup, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
it's, it,
Yeah.
it still tugs on you,
Yeah.
We've been in the Stanley Cup final 3 times, 82, 94, and 2011. And, that was a tough one because we were up in the series, of course, had an opportunity to kind of bring the Stanley Cup home to Canada, and it didn't quite work out that way. But again, presented an opportunity for me to kind of get behind the mic for live sports again.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, like I said, what an opportunity it was. And also, I think you had another pretty big opportunity as well in 2016, uh, announcing the World Cup of Hockey in Toronto. Could you kind of go through that a little bit?
Yeah, so I was asked to do the World Cup of Hockey. So my relationship with the NHL was one where I started there. I went to China with them when they started the China Games. They wanted to expand the game of hockey abroad. And so I went to China with them, with the Canucks and the Los Angeles Kings for some preseason games. So that kind of launched my relationship or closer relationship with the National Hockey League in New York City and all of the great people that put on those games. And that of course led into I guess going back to 2019 when I was asked to start doing all of the marquee events for the NHL. So it's been a wonderful experience. I'm very, very grateful to my colleagues at the NHL for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah. And with a voice like that, though, they would be silly to just let you hang out in the back. I mean, that's
Well, yeah, that's very kind of you to say. I mean, there's a lot of great voices out there. I mean,
sure.
there are, and just waiting to be, discovered, waiting to give that opportunity to, and I just been lucky enough to make some very, very good connections and and a lot of good fortune has come my way from just networking and meeting people and and trying to be a nice guy, you know.
Yeah, and that's a large part of it. There's luck, there's persistence, and there's just being a good human being. And if you combine those three, then things are bound to happen.
I agree.
So let's see here. Your game day setup. So you've done basketball, you've done hockey, you've just done some general PA work, just for regular public settings anyway. What does your regular game day setup look like in terms of microphones? Do you keep paper notes? Do you have an iPad, or do you just kind of go with what the production team tells you, or what does that look like?
Well, I mean, we in terms of there's the game, there's the announcements of goals, assists, penalties, all of that kind of stuff, the in-game stuff, and then there's scripting for the entertainment side of things or the sponsorship side of things. We run on a software, so there's no paper. Everything's on computer, which I love because I edit and kind of make it mine, put a
Yeah.
little myself into the announcements. But yeah, I mean, my game day prep is if we're playing a certain team that night, that morning I'm up looking at the latest stats. I'm looking at the latest news that comes out. Have they signed somebody? Have they sent somebody down? Have they brought somebody up from the farm team? And that's for both teams, obviously. Pronunciation's obviously key, especially with the newest players coming in, guys that may have been traded to your team within the last 24 hours. We've had a lot of action here in Vancouver
No.
over the last couple of weeks, and getting to know them and how they would like their name, pronounced. We've got 3 Pedersons on our team now. So, I'm still looking forward to that Pedersen from Pedersen and Pedersen
Yeah.
goal announcement. That's waiting in the back of my brain to do. So yeah, I mean, it's really all about preparation, knowing the teams, knowing what you have to do that night. If we have a new activation, in terms of a timeout when we're doing some sort of entertainment or a prize giveaway or something like that, we have in-arena hosts that do their fair share of that. A lot of the stuff, whether it's skits or funny stuff that we do, they leave a lot of that to me. That's where my radio background kind of comes in terms of, if we're doing we'll make it simple. Let's just say a kiss cam, or we're doing, we're doing somebody that looks like somebody, they leave a lot of the ad libbing up to me. So it's, I'll see somebody on the screen and I have an idea in my head and
Yeah.
try to figure out, is this appropriate? Can I say that? And so again, it's a lot of it is we do a pregame rehearsal every day. I'm at the rink, for a 7 o'clock start. I'm at the rink at 3:30. So we go through a production meeting. We go through rehearsals every single game. We go through our opening every single game. And that's not really more for me. It's really more for the technical side of things, making sure that all the bells and whistles on our $15 million new scoreboard and screen are working properly. So, the attention to detail is very, very important to us here. We want to make sure the show is always on the ice. That's the number one priority. We have no control of what happens kind of there. That's the players, the coaches, everybody else. But everything that surrounds it is up to us and our great game presentation team. So we take pride in making sure that people leave the rink with a smile on their face, knowing that they've been entertained.
Yeah, that's the biggest part, right?
Yeah.
They're the season ticket holders. They're the fans. It's somebody's first game. It's somebody's last game. So you want to make it as special as possible. Now you talked about the game experience, right, with the scoreboards and the lighting. Do you get any input on that, or is that solely production or in-house?
Listen, we have meetings. Like I'm an outside contractor, right? So I come in and I do my thing and I leave, which is actually pretty cool. It's really good. But at the end of the day, if there's something that I've got an idea about, whether or not it has to do with scripting, whether or not it has to do with something that we're planning on doing and going, well, hey, it might be great to get a camera on this person or something like that. They're not, they never say no. You can't come up with any ideas. They want that. It's a very collaborative environment with our crew. Whether or not they take the idea is not really that important to me. It's just, hey, I've got this idea. You want to do it?
Yeah.
Hey, maybe not this game. Maybe we can do it next game. So it's really, really good that way. That's, we always come in with a really positive attitude and leave with the same positive attitude because we know we've done our best job, right?
1,000%. You hit the nail on the head on that one. So obviously you love calling the Canucks. Vancouver is just a huge sports town. I'm not sure that many people down here can relate because hockey is not as big in the States, unfortunately. And I'm in the
Well, it
Midwest.
is. Look, I'm going to correct you. I mean, it
It
is,
is.
in certain markets, maybe
Sure.
not where you happen to be right now.
Yeah.
I mean, in Indiana, we know. I mean, basketball is it. I mean, that is it. And listen, Bobby Knight, my gosh, growing up as a huge basketball fan myself and still am. But in terms of the understanding or the knowledge of hockey, maybe in your state or some other states, you're absolutely correct. But you get into places in the states. We did the Stadium Series in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Hmm.
And my goodness, on the campus there at that stadium, that by far has been my favorite one so far in terms of the Stadium Series. We're going to the Ohio State University coming up in March,
Okay.
and so I'm looking forward to that because it's tailgating in the morning.
Yeah.
It's party all day. It's get to the stadium. It's outdoor hockey. It's just it's fantastic. So you get into the markets that have teams and they're very knowledgeable. And of course, Canada, you know, it's kind of in our blood.
Yeah.
We kind of, are born with a hockey stick kind of coming out. And that's why I'm looking so forward to the Four Nations coming up in
Yes.
the next week or so too.
Yeah, that's going to be really exciting. I can't wait to see it. It's like the Olympics again, just a little special little treat. We just ended up with the World Juniors, ending up. It's already been over a month ago. Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, just getting to see those players you might not see on the same team, but
Yeah, exactly.
moving
And it's
back up
important
there,
to
and
them. It's
yeah,
it's it's real important to them. I mean, you talk to some of the players from Sweden, Finland, the States, Canada, and they want to win. They want to put that crest, that country crest on, and they want to represent, and they want to bring that home. And of course, it's a lead up to the Olympics next year as well.
Mhm.
And I'm very excited because I'm going to Boston to do
Okay,
uh, those games in Boston. So I get to see the final games and get to be part of it. So I'm very grateful.
one experience. That's going to be
Yeah,
that'll be fun. That'll be a
yeah.
good time. I've never been up to Boston, but I've heard many good things.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's a wonderful, wonderful town. We had the Winter Classic there at Fenway Park that I was a part of, and
Okay,
I didn't get a chance to see as much of Boston as I wanted to when I was there last time. But I'm there for a week this time, so I'm actually going to have days off where I'm going to be able to go out and see the sights and meet the locals.
excellent, excellent. So, do you ever miss calling games for the Grizzlies, or is that something that's kind
No,
of
I
important to you?
no, I do. I
Yeah.
really do. I mean, it was 6 years flew by so fast. At the end of the day, there was just so many determining factors why the team didn't work here. The dollar was, well, actually, it was probably around the same as the dollar is these days. When you're paying U.S. dollars,
Mhm.
for athletes and only taking in Canadian revenue. The team was not great. But we put bums in the seats. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't an attendance issue.
No,
It was just a whole bunch of determining factors that I won't get into. But
sure.
the next question might be, do you think a team would ever come back to Vancouver? And just with the nature of how expensive teams are now, whether they come from another market, whether something doesn't work in one market and they decide to move it to Vancouver or somewhere else. It's a billion and a half, what, $2 billion now for an NBA team, and
Yeah,
you got to have deep pockets, and it's a tough go. I would love it. I miss doing it. I mean, being center court. I mean,
yeah,
your center court. You've got some of the best athletes in the world. And I was just grateful and fortunate enough to see the Charles Barkleys and the Keem Olajuwons and the Michael Jordans and the Shaquille O'Neals and the Penny Hardaways and all those guys, a foot away from me checking into
yeah.
the game. So it was pretty special. And then to sit right next to some of the greatest broadcasters of all time. I mean, I still remember I was talking to someone the other day about being center court Grizzlies, and Bob Cousy is sitting right next to me.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so as a guy who grew up, watching basketball and revered these guys as players, and then to have them sitting right next to me, it's pretty special. I mean, I love sitting where I'm sitting way up high at
Yeah.
Rogers Arena. I don't have a problem not sitting in the penalty box and being right there on the ice. But being there center court was something that I'll always cherish.
Yeah. As you should. It's experiences like that are worth. I mean, completely priceless things that you can't put a dollar sign on, and you can't really relive. So it's just it's a part of
Yeah,
you.
yeah, absolutely.
So another thing that you have said that is a part of you was Daniel Sedin's overtime winner, assisted by his brother against the
Yeah.
Coyotes, April 5th of 2018. Would you think that that was your best call of all time, your favorite call?
I think so far probably my favorite, because there was just you couldn't have written it up any better.
No.
You knew it was going to be their last game at home, uh, sold out crowd, um, just to see how they scored the goal. You've got the 22s, the 33s, and then it assisted by 23, Alex Edler. And then to have them be co-first stars of the game, we had never done that before, but it just kind of made sense. And so there was a lot of emotion. We knew that that was the last time that we were going to see them play a game on home ice. So there was a lot of jubilation when they won, a lot of tears, because they're genuinely the absolute nicest people on the planet. You cannot get two guys that were you look at them, and I think they got a bad rap for uh, I don't even want to use the word, but they weren't those like hard-nosed hockey players like everyone. They
Right.
had so much skill. They were so smart, and sportsmen let me talk about sportsmen. You couldn't find people that respected the game and other players, not only their teammates but the opposition, more than they did. And to have them still a part of our organization, teaching the young guys that are coming up,
Mhm.
whether it be in Abbotsford, our AHL affiliate, or in Vancouver, just to have them still here. But you're right, that was for me, just because the Canucks hadn't made the playoffs in a decade, up until last season,
Yeah.
so I didn't have a chance to do a lot of playoff games. So
Mhm.
that one by far, so far, is still the one that's kind of gets me here. You know,
No, understandably so. I mean,
yeah,
that was a huge moment. That's something that you'll remember forever. Kids will remember
yeah.
that growing up. I am a Rangers fan, born and raised, and I still remember 1994. And I'm still, I mean, I hate to say it, I'm talking to a Canucks announcer,
I know.
but
Yeah, yeah, that's still a tough one. That's just really, really hard. That's really hard. You
yeah,
know.
and Sam Rosen, I think, jinxed us that day when he said this one will last a lifetime, and so far it has.
Yeah,
So,
for sure, for
but
sure. And again, it was a great series, and
it was a great
again,
series.
John Ashbridge, my predecessor, and dear friend, who
Mhm.
passed away in 2018, unfortunately. We used to get together because we shared the position. When he had that hell scare in 2011, he said at the end of the season, he said, "Hey, how would you like to share the position with me? I want to kind of scale back a little bit." And he said, "How many games do you want to do?" And I said, "Don't ask me how many games I want to do. How many games don't you want to do?"
Right.
You know, you had been doing this since 1987. He never missed a game, and so to have him as a guy to not only try to carry on his legacy, but to get his mentorship and to talk about 80, well, I mean, he wasn't part of it in 82. He wasn't doing the PA back then, but 94 and 2011, to talk to him about those things, and to learn from him. It's something that I hold near and dear.
Yeah, 1,000% so. That's so true. Yeah, he was a legend. So outside of John, are there any PA voices, past, present, that you hear and you kind of want to emulate, or that you just really admire, or maybe you try to work in some of their shtick into yours?
Yeah, I respect all PA announcers, whatever sport that they happen to do. Um, I've always, one thing that John always used to kind of instill with me, because doing the Grizzlies, obviously the NBA, the NHL has come, used to be the NBA over here, the NHL in terms of kind of announcers, and now it's kind of like this because we've got more markets and so on and so forth. And the game has changed, game presentation has changed. So before it was, the NBA was really kind of over the top compared to the traditional kind of NHL kind of thing. And I think that's kind of gone.
Mhm.
But what I tried to do was when I, started sharing the job with John, I didn't want to kind of be over the top. If I did a game and then John did a game, it would be too different. So if there's anybody that I try to emulate or try to take some stuff from, would be John, because he was such a great classic traditional announcer, but with a wicked sense of humor. I mean, if you were to heard some of the stuff on the headset, I mean, it was certainly not for broadcast,
No.
but he was so great, so gracious, so humble, and talk about a voice. I mean, he was so identifiable with the team. So when I did eventually take over, and I remember seeing John, I saw him literally the day before he passed away, and we chatted about things, and he goes, you know. I, Al, I appreciate that you're doing the job. I think it's in good hands, and that made me feel great not seeing him in the state that he was. But so what I wanted to do is take a little bit of John, uh, take a little bit of that traditional stuff, and still keep that into the game. But I've never tried to emulate anybody else. I've always tried to kind of just bring me. Like we
Mhm.
all have our own personality. Not that you can't take things from other people that have been doing it for a long time, like Lou Nolan in Philly,
Mhm.
and Tom Calhoun in St. Louis, who I've both met and are just wonderfully gracious guys and classic guys. And again, haven't missed a game. So, you take a little bit, I think, just by osmosis, by listening to some people, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, but I've always kind of tried to be myself and bring whatever I had to it. And if it didn't work, then it's on me.
Sure. Oh, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had some things that have really, really clicked and other things that have fallen flat, but there's no better way to learn than to just do it. Do it your way.
Yeah,
Do
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Um, so with everybody's got ups and downs and seasons. You guys traded JT Miller back to New York. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. But please enjoy Philip Hedl. He's so fun to watch. The kid's
Very, very talented guy. Yeah.
very talented. I hated to
He
lose
likes
him,
having
but
the puck. I like that. He likes having the puck.
he does. He's a
Yeah.
show himself. He will be sorely missed on Broadway for sure. But so during games that aren't maybe so exciting, maybe the house isn't packed, or you know, they get out to a 4-0 lead, and you're like, oh, this is comfortable, or you're down 0-4, 0-5. Either way, do you try to keep that same intensity from start to finish, or do you kind of read the crowd and say, maybe I don't need to go so nuts here, or what do you do in those situations?
Yeah, I mean that's a really good question. I think how we approach it is, you talk about attendance. When my daughter was playing, high level basketball, and they would ask me to come in, I would treat that game exactly how I would treat a Canucks game. When I do charity games, when I do whatever, I kind of, I don't think our attitude is whether we're up 4-0 or down 4-0. Our job is to be a part of the surrounding, stuff that's going on
Yeah,
in the game. Granted, we might be down 4-0, but that makes us want to work harder to make sure that the crowd at least has a little bit of fun in those timeouts, in those intermissions.
sure.
When we're up 4-0, well, I mean, it's. I'm not going to say it's easier, but it's like they always say, winning changes everything, right? So you find that if we don't have a great season, maybe we get into a losing streak of some sorts. You find that sometimes you hear people complaining about stuff more.
Yeah.
When as soon as you start winning, that just seems to go away.
Mhm.
And but again, we approach it whether there's 4,000 people, not that there's ever 4,000, but whether there's 4,000 people in the rink or there's 19,682, a sellout in the rink, we approach it exactly the same way. Because, and as a PA announcer, one of, again, more advice from my late great friend John, was, when I was doing the Grizzlies, we would get together and talk. And even though it was a different sport and it was, the Grizzlies was a little bit more over the top than
Mm.
what the Canucks were doing. John basically said, I said, you've been doing this for a long time. Like, if there's one thing that's most important to you as a PA announcer, what would it be? And his best advice for me was, you have two jobs as a PA announcer, regardless of what sport that you're doing. Your first job is to inform, and your second job is to entertain. Now, I'm not saying that one is up here and one's down there. They're very, very close.
Right.
But the information portion of what you have to do is still the most important. That's what you have to get out there. And if you can do it in an entertaining fashion,
Yeah.
then you've nailed both, right?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. It's one thing to elicit a response from the crowd and keep them engaged, but the whole reason there's a public address announcer is to address the public.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. That's your job. I mean, difference in the NBA, potential scoring, every 24 seconds.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So you're constantly, I remember the Michael Jordan game. That's the one that people remember most here in Vancouver is, we were up by 19 points. Michael was on the bench. He didn't really need to play. And we're up by 19 in the fourth quarter. And one of our players, infamous Derek Martin, hits a three, turns to Michael and goes, said something, whatever he said to him. Michael, of course, goes to Phil. I want to go back into the game. He comes in. What does he do? Boom, boom, boom. So it's me yelling, Sharif Abdur Rahim in my biggest voice for Vancouver. And then once he get back into the game, it was Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan. It was just, as disinterested as I possibly could. But inside, you're witnessing greatness. So,
Oh, yeah.
You have to kind of temper your whatever you're doing because you're watching something pretty special. But you
Yeah.
just have to say, just like I do here, when the other team scores, you have to, out of respect, announce their goals.
Yeah.
But I do them. I don't want to say as disinterested as I possibly can sound, but it's like blah 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 time blah.
Yeah.
You saw it, you know it, and then ours obviously is all the bells and whistles and as big as we possibly can.
Yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah.
You're seeing late stage Ovechkin reaching Gretzky's record, and I think he's going to break it. You're seeing Sidney Crosby, who's been a gem for just as long. And you may not like the team or the player, but you have to just kind of recognize that these guys are going to be, first ballot Hall of Famers, top of Rushmore of hockey players for most people, and you just kind of have to be reserved and quiet and pretend that you really don't care that much.
No, I know, and the thing is, it's all about respect. Just a side note about Ovechkin. Years ago, when I first started, I remember he came. It was a game they were playing the Canucks, and I don't know if it was. I don't know if they blew us out. I can't even remember what the score was. I just remember Ovechkin had the puck a lot, and he was hitting people. He was scoring. He was doing everything. He was just a beast out there. And then after the game, back when pre-COVID, when we can have access to the dressing rooms, and go down and so on and so forth, there he was at the end of the game, on a bike, stationary bike, just going like pedaling, like, he was trying to catch up to somebody. And then he'd get off the bike and then he'd have the medicine ball and he'd be doing squats and throwing it up again. Like, you see that and you go, that's why he is great.
Yeah.
That's why Sydney's great.
Yeah.
That's why all of these guys are great, because the game's over with, but they're still prepping and getting their body ready for the next one. So it's pretty impressive to see,
Yeah. A machine, a specimen.
Yeah.
That's why these guys get the big bucks.
Yeah,
for sure.
For sure.
You kind of dabbled into this a little bit. So, what advice would you give someone starting their journey into becoming a public address announcer at the highest level? Maybe be, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball.
I don't know. I get asked this question a lot, and the thing about what we do, and yourself included, it doesn't matter what level that you happen to be on. Everyone has to start somewhere.
Mhm.
I was lucky enough. I started my first really PA. I mean, I did Major League Baseball when it came to Vancouver. We had a series, an exhibition series back in the '90s. A friend of mine was a promoter in, Seattle, Toronto, Detroit, and I think it was Florida, Tampa Bay. I can't remember. Anyway, so that was my kind of first dabble. He said, "Hey, you want to do the PA at this thing?" And I'd never done PA before, but I played baseball. I knew the semantics and I knew
Sure.
all of the mathematics of everything. And as soon as I did that, I went, "Oh, wow, I'd never done this before." I was in radio and television and voiceover and stuff. And I went, "This is, I mean, it's live. You get to watch the game. You get to announce all of these great players. I mean, this is kind of fun." And then the Grizzlies kind of thing came. But in terms of advice for people, whatever level they happen to begin with, is you have to do your reps. You gotta do it. The more games that you do, the more you will find things that work, and like you were mentioning earlier, things that work and things that don't work. You have to make mistakes. I've made my share, and now it's better to make mistakes maybe if you're doing a high school game for your daughter, but at the end of the day, you still have to go through those. You got to find out why you did that. Was I just not focused, or was I? But it's all about reps. You have to do it, and you have to keep passionate about it. I've got a friend of mine that I've been mentoring for probably over 10 years. A guy that I met through one of our charities that the Canucks are involved with, called the Canucks Autism Network. And I met him at a sports day there, and he came up to me and he said, "Al, I want to do what you do." And I said, "Oh, well, fantastic. What are you doing now?" And he goes, "Well, I'm just doing like the junior high X football." And I said, "Well, that's wonderful." And he goes, "Well, when can we start our mentorship program?" He's a very direct guy.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, let's begin now." And he's now kind of moving up in the ranks, and he's doing, college stuff. He's doing BC Junior Hockey League stuff. And he's always saying, "Al, I want to get to the next level. I want to get to where you are. I want to get to," and I go, "First off, reps. You got to do it. You got to keep doing it and plugging away. Second, all persistence and patience.
Yeah.
It's really all about patience. If you want to do it just for the love of doing it, fantastic. If you want to try to reach to the level of professional sports, regardless if it's PA announcing or you're doing play-by-play or you're a rinkside reporter or you're whatever it happens to be, it's just you have to start somewhere, and wherever you happen to start, you got to move from here to here to here to here. And I talked to other guys in the league that and there's only 32 of us in the NHL. That's the thing. There's not a lot of jobs, so if somebody gets that job, they're going to probably be there for a while. So you have to be patient for one of those positions to open up, I think, at the end of the day. So if you can kind of do those three P's, I think that's a good mindset to have as you kind of move on.
Sure. Yeah. That's persistence and practice pay off in spades. And they have for you. So my last question, I guess, would be, what's the most rewarding part of your job? Of any Canucks game, what's the most rewarding part of your night?
I think at the end of the day, working with a team, like I'm here talking to you from my home studio where I spend all day doing voiceovers, which is fantastic. I always say the seven voices in my head, absolutely love it. And it's wonderful to do different projects for different clients and, stretch yourself here and stretch yourself there and all that. But there's something about getting out of this studio that's very, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
uh, it's soundproof. I've got my own padded room that I can work with every day. But then to get out and to work with a team, and I'm talking about my game presentation team, everyone from, my show caller to our floor director to the people running the scoreboard to our lights to, our music to
Yeah.
everybody that has anything to do with the arena. Being part of that's what I get the most out of, because I know at the end of the day, um, it's not about me. It's about all of us as a collective group trying to have, it's like no different than the guys on the ice. Group of guys, really talented people. What do they want to do? They want to win. And so do we every single game. And that's what we try to do. Some games are better than others, But I think at the end of the day, I just look down and I know that everybody has the same mindset that I have, is that we're going in, we're going to put on the best show we possibly can, regardless of what's happening on the ice. And walking, back to the car to drive home, I'm just thinking, how lucky am I? I get to watch a game that I love, and I get to announce all of the players that I respect. Even not necessarily even on my team. I did a
Sure.
PWHL game, the
Oh,
first one in Vancouver, and to announce these amazing, talented women that now have a league and will expand and get bigger
yes.
and bigger, and to be a part of that, and the rush of hearing a sold out, Rogers Arena cheering for these amazing women that are taking that game to the next level. So again, it's really being a part of something. You know, I'm
Mhm.
not I'm not by myself in my studio right here. I'm a part of a bigger, wider picture. And
Oh,
everyone wants to belong, right? Everyone wants to be a part of something that makes people feel good. And I'm very, very grateful that I get to do that.
yeah. And you do a wonderful job at it. You are a staple in hockey. You're a staple in Vancouver. Definitely making John proud. I can't speak for the man, but I know that I love your body of work. Everyone I've spoken to loves your body of work. So yeah, just continue doing you, and I think you'll go down in that broadcasting Hall of Fame, that PA Hall of Fame. If such
Yeah,
a thing exists, let's open it up.
yeah, somebody's got to start that. Maybe you got to start a petition to get a PA Hall of Fame going, and there will be hundreds
Sure.
of people that will be in there way before I would get in there. But just to be thought in the same of breath as my dear friend John and some other people is enough for me.
Yeah. Well, it's deservedly so, and you're doing the man proud. You're doing Vancouver proud. So thank you for that. Where can our friends and family here find you on social media if they'd like to reach out?
At Al Murdoch, ALMURDOCH. I'm not as I'm not. I mean, I post. I'm not. I don't post as much as I used to.
Sure.
I'm really trying to kind of enjoy what I'm doing now, as opposed to say, this is what I'm kind of doing.
Yeah.
You can find me there. You can find me doing all of the NHL, marquee events coming up, the Four Nations in Boston, and then I'll be in Columbus, Ohio for the Stadium Series, and then just looking to continue that, because it's something that I really, really love to do.
Understandable. Well, I will try to make the drive over to Columbus. It's about 2.5, 3 hours from me, but
You should. You should.
I've
It's
always
going to
wanted
be
to
a
go to a
party.
game, so
Yeah, it's going to be
want
great.
to. All right, Al. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and have a wonderful evening. All right.
Thank you. All the best and good luck with this show, man. Onwards and upwards, man.
Thank you so much.